This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
Today on CityCast Philly. For several months now, the city's been implementing the Kensington Community Revival Plan. It's a multiple-phased approach to address the decades-long open-air drug market and quality of life issues like homelessness, addiction, and violence in the neighborhood. But there's been some mixed reviews on how effective it's been. I'm speaking with two journalists about the plan and the state of things in Kensington. It's Monday, August 12th. I'm Trenae Nuri, and here's what Philly's talking about. Sammy Kayola, Special Projects Reporter at Kensington Voice, and Jill Bauer-Reese, Editor at Kensington Voice. Thank you both for coming back to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Trenae.
You've both reported that city officials are really focused on this plan, Kensington Community Revival Plan. Just break it down for me. What is this plan?
So, breaking down the plan, the Kensington Community Revival Plan is a policing plan that Parker announced on her 100th day in office. And it has 5 different stages to it about how the police are going to roll it out.
Sammy, did you want to break it down?
Phase 1 is warning and opportunity. Phase 2 is law enforcement and the community's establishment of goals and expectations. Phase 3 is securing the neighborhood. Phase 4 is community transition. And Phase 5 is sustainability. So sorry to backtrack here, but after the May 8th encampment resolution, you may have seen our coverage of this announced sort of clearing of 2 blocks of Kensington Avenue that was initially supposed to be getting people connected to services. It was after that we were supposed to enter this law enforcement phase. And then phase 3 is police kind of securing and holding blocks of Kensington by putting up police barricades to block the sidewalks and, actively patrol those streets. So we are seeing some of that.
I think one of the challenges that we saw when the plan was initially announced was they defined a very specific geographic region in that plan. So when we're talking about these 5 phases, there was a target area that the plan and the rollout of these phases was supposed to occur within certain boundaries. And so the boundaries were from Tioga to Indiana Avenue, and some residents and community leaders initially questioned those boundaries because it actually cut out Kensington's entire Somerset neighborhood, which is where a lot of these quality of life issues are occurring. And so, one conversation that we had before we got, on this call was about how, we have this plan that was released. Communication from the Parker administration has been limited, right? And so we're all sitting here trying to break down and interpret the plan and, where we are in the plan. And the reality is that this map that they've provided, that's like not even the boundaries that they've been focusing on, at least how we're interpreting them, implementing these different phases. Because a lot of these activities, including the story that we reported about the unannounced quality of life effort, occurred totally outside of these boundaries.
And just to clarify, that was the unannounced police action last month in Kensington Somerset section. Do you think that there are some limitations of the information that they can provide, or just the challenges that they have to go through to navigate some of the nuances that are actually happening on the streets?
It seems to me that they are still figuring out what the role of the increased police presence in the neighborhood is going to be. So on June 18th, we saw an influx of 75 new police academy graduates into Kensington. So they are now part of the Kensington Police District. That's the KPD. And it's our understanding that they are, going to be the ones making the arrests. We have been looking at and analyzing some of the data that's actually been published by the district attorney's office. And we found that between June 18th, so that's when all of the new academy police officers hit the ground, and July 8th, which is pretty close to when that quality of life action took place, we saw a 123% increase in arrests for drug possession in the 24th district specifically. We also saw a 17% increase in arrests for drug sales, that's with and without a firearm. So that seems to be what they're doing. We've also heard that they're going to be meeting community groups and kind of getting to know the neighborhood. And then there's also the East Service Division, which is a different unit that covers the 24th district as well as other districts. And they're more focused on quote unquote quality of life, like cleaning up, areas that are trash ridden, finding shopping carts that were stolen. They say that they're not doing arrests at all, that's KPD. So, we're sorting out who was doing what. And I don't think PPD is communicating that quite yet either.
Gotcha. More on Kensington after the break.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
Make this new school year an opportunity for your kids to learn important life skills with Greenlight. Greenlight is a debit card and money app for families where kids learn how to save, invest, and spend wisely, while parents keep an eye on kids' money habits. Greenlight also helps families get into their fall routine with a chores feature that lets parents assign chores and pay kids allowance when they check them off. Get your first month free at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
So, Sammy and Jill, you just described how this plan is changing and evolving over the past few months, which may make it hard to follow at some points. And we've talked about the encampment sweep in May and those last month. But can you tell me more about what happened in July, especially, and how community members, people who are living in this neighborhood, are responding to the actions and other elements of the Kensington Community Revival Plan?
So there have been some drastic changes for people living in Kensington, especially near the K&A intersection and near Somerset Station. On July 10th, there was sort of a quality of life action, is what PPD later called it. They blocked off a couple of streets, including some side streets. Traffic could not go through. Police were stopping people to ask for their identification, letting some people through if they could prove they were residents. Jill and I were both on the ground that day. It was just pretty chaotic.
Yeah, I think PPD had closed off Kensington Avenue and Emerald Street between Orleans and Somerset, which is a very large block of blocks in Philadelphia for the entire day. And this had been unannounced. And that was an area where after the encampment clearing in May, people scattered, and they scattered to Kensington and Somerset and the side streets behind Kensington and Somerset, which are mostly residential. So residents had been complaining about that they felt that the encampment sweep did not do what it was supposed to do, which was engage people and get them into services, and instead just scared people off, and people scattered to these residential neighborhoods. And so, from our perspective, it looked like PPD was trying to address some of that scattering in that area where people were, using drugs, selling drugs. And so suddenly PPD was there blocking this off. There were police on every single corner. PPD said that they towed 40 different vehicles. They closed down a couple of businesses that had like licensing issues. And, some residents described it, and so did some community organizations, as really chaotic and disruptive because there was no warning, right? Like that any of this was going to happen. And so, for example, the new Kensington Community Development Corporation, which is located right within that area, within those boundaries, their employees were showing up for work and they weren't able to get into like the street that they needed to get to their building initially. You had the NKCDC, and that's the New Kensington Community Development Corporation, also collected a lot of feedback from their residents, right, about just like a general response to what was happening. And you had people who were really scared because they saw so many police, right? And there was one person who thought maybe a murder had happened, right outside of where they were located. Other people who were physically disabled and could not walk to the outside of the perimeter that had been barricaded by police had trouble getting to doctor's appointments. But then when we published the story and elevated some of those concerns, you saw it floating around on social media, and some residents were criticizing the people who were complaining, right? Because they're like, well, what do you want the police to do? Just not address this stuff?
Right, because it seems like it's like a heavy problem. And how else would you address all of these issues?
I've definitely spoken to residents that are very happy the police are there. And they say, oh, I feel safer. The neighborhood looks cleaner to me, right? Like I feel better walking around. There's just a wide variation depending on who you ask.
Now, Sammy, what's the likelihood that another unannounced quality of life effort or efforts will happen in Kensington?
I think pretty common. We know that this actually wasn't the first one. There was something similar at 3200 G Street. We think sometime before July 8th. And again, police towed, it looks like 37 vehicles. They shut down 4 businesses, sealed 5 houses. So, they are able to do this and they don't need to post this in advance. And I want to be clear, this is not just PPD. They partner with sanitation. They partner with L&I. And we got the sense from the 24th Police District supervisor we talked to, that's Sergeant Mike Hannison, that this is the direction that they're going in. Like this is one of their main jobs is, cleaning up areas and issuing these kinds of citations and, asking people to move.
Are there things that Kensington community members and advocates want to see as the KCR plan continues to unfold in this neighborhood?
Yeah, so the New Kensington Community Development Corporation put out it's the second report that they've released in a series called Co-Creating Kensington. Residents and community leaders have complained that some of the meetings or plans that have been rolled out by the city in the past have not genuinely considered community feedback. And so I think really, what community leaders and residents want is for the administration to look at the work that they've put in, right, already, the reports that they've published time and time again with recommendations, and they want the city to follow those recommendations instead of designing their own plan. There are a lot of really good nuggets in the Co-Creating Kensington plan that the city could take, right, and potentially implement. And Sammy, I don't know if you want to mention.
Yeah, I can shout out a few of them. I mean, things like home repairs, cleaning and greening vacant lots, Those have been shown in some studies to reduce violent crime specifically. And then we're also seeing things in that plan like building more trauma-sensitive education in Kensington schools, because sort of the ripple effect for parents and kids around what they're seeing in the neighborhood every day, also has longer-term impacts. There are calls for more affordable housing here, which we know is crucial for people experiencing addiction, for them to have a stable place to live when they're accessing treatment, post-treatment recovery. So, housing across the board for that population. There is an ask in here for continued access to syringe services programs and longer opioid use disorder treatment. So, I think connection to services is sort of a missing piece that Jill and I are still trying to find out. What is the service connection? Where are the beds? Whether that's, just a place to live, or whether that's a place to start 30-day rehab, or you're coming out of rehab, you need transitional recovery housing. Like where are those service connections?
What should we be paying attention to, keeping an eye on in the coming weeks and months?
Yeah, so one big thing is just, what do arrest rates actually look like in Kensington? What are officers making arrests for? Who are they arresting? So, Jill and I are keeping an eye on that data. We also have, heard concerns from civil rights organizations, including the ACLU, about whether there's going to be, unconstitutional or racially biased stops of individuals in Kensington and frisks. So we are curious about how those numbers are going to look. So there's that. And we're really curious about how people are going to get connected to services. People who are homeless, people who have opioid use disorder, where are they going to go? Like, that's just a question we hear all the time.
Yeah.
And, we know that the city has outreach workers that are supposed to be making those service connections. It's a little bit hard to track how often that's happening. So that's something we're continuing to try to find answers about.
Yeah, and I'll just add that we should also look to the existing diversion programs, right? Like what their numbers look like. So Sammy wrote a few months ago a story about the police assisted diversion program that is on Allegheny. And when I last drove by, there were a lot of people outside that appeared to be seeking services. And so, are they able to get services through the police assisted diversion program? Or if people are getting arrested, what is happening after those arrests? And also the prison numbers, right?
Okay, and that's the program that's referred thousands of low-level offenders to social services instead of jail.
So I think looking, right, like we're hyper-focusing on policing, but policing is influenced by all of these other like intersecting systems, and looking at those other systems and where they intersect, right, through diversion and housing and all of these issues that the New Kensington Community Development Corporation highlighted in their report. And also, I'll last say, one thing that they did call out was Black and Brown overdose rates, and keeping an eye on those numbers as well. And I just think that would be important.
That was Sammy Kayola, Special Projects Reporter, and Jill Bauer-Reese, Editor, both at Kensington Voice. Thank you for joining me on CityCast Philly.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you, Trinae. It was great to be here.
Read more of Sammy and Jill's reporting about Kensington on the Kensington Voice website. That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. Let us know what you think of this episode. Tell a friend. Rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.